The first of our 5 units is on problem solving. In his book, How to Solve It, George Polya proposed a 4-step process for solving problems. This process is often taught at the K-12 level for problem solving. First step, you need to understand the problem. Second, devise a plan to solve it. Third, carry out the plan. And fourth, look back. I'm going to use this problem to illustrate the 4-step procedure. First step is understand the problem. In a classroom situation, often a teacher will have a student read the problem, maybe then have a second or third student read the problem out loud. Sometimes even the whole class reads it out loud together. So in this problem, say that a husband and wife are driving to her mother's house. They have an appointment with a marriage counselor en route. After some time passes, the wife asks, "How far are we from our house?" The husband replies, "Half as far as from here to Pollyanna's office." A while after the appointment, they are 200 miles from where the wife asked her first question. She now asks the second question, "How far are we from Mother's house?" The husband takes advantage of this golden opportunity and responds, "I told you already, half as far as from here to Pollyanna's office." How far apart are the two houses? Part of understanding the problem is noting the given information. What do we know in this problem? Pollyanna's office is between their house and her mother's house. The first question is asked between their house and Pollyanna's office. At that point, the distance to their house is half the distance to Pollyanna's office. The second question is asked between Pollyanna's office and her mother's house. At that point, the distance to her mother's house is half the distance to Pollyanna's office. Lastly, there is a distance of 200 miles between the locations where the questions were asked. Another important part of understanding the problem is knowing what it is asking. What do we want to know in this problem? In this problem, we're asked how far apart are the two houses. Polya's second step is devise a plan to solve the problem. One approach to devising plans is to learn a number of problem-solving strategies. You can think of these as tools in your toolbox. If all you have is a hammer, you can only pound nails. But if you have a hammer and a wrench and a saw and pliers and so forth, there are a lot of different things you can do. Different tools apply to different tasks. So once you learn a number of strategies, when you're presented with a new problem that's maybe unlike any you've seen before, you can think of, oh, I can use this tool or this strategy perhaps. Or you try that when it doesn't work, try this other strategy. Some of the strategies we'll be looking at are guess and check, make an orderly list or a systematic list, draw a diagram, use algebra or solve an equation, work backwards, analyze the units or dimensional analysis, solve an easier related problem, use a formula, identify subproblems, look for a pattern, eliminate possibilities, and use a model. My favorite strategy is to draw a diagram. This strategy is useful when visualizing the problem may be helpful. This includes problems involving a geometric shape, a physical action or a sequence of actions, motion or distances, a number of objects that may be related, a quantity that may be divided into parts, as well as many other situations. Polya's third step is to carry out the plan. I'm going to start my diagram by drawing a line segment, placing the houses at the two ends of it, and Pollyanna's office between them. The next step would be to mark the location of the first question and the second question on the diagram. A common mistake is to place them exactly halfway between the houses and Pollyanna's office. This doesn't reflect what the question is saying, though. It says the distance to their house is half the distance to Pollyanna's office, but in the diagram, the distance to their house is equal to the distance to Pollyanna's office, so this diagram is not an accurate depiction of the conditions of this problem. Since at the time the first question is asked, the distance to their house is only half the distance to Pollyanna's office, we take the interval from their house to Pollyanna's office and divide it into 3 equal sections and place the first question at the end of the first section. That way, the distance to their house is half the distance to Pollyanna's office because that distance is 2 sections compared to 1 section. Similarly, if we take the interval from Pollyanna's office to her mother's house and divide that into 3 equal sections and mark the end of the second section as the location of the second question, the distance from there to their mother's house is half the distance to Pollyanna's office. This diagram is a better depiction of what's going on in the problem. The other information we are given is that the distance between where the first question was asked and the second question was asked is 200 miles. If we divide that into 4 equal sections, each of those sections would be 50 miles long. From their house to their mother's house is 6 of those sections, so the total distance must be 6 times 50 miles, or 300 miles. So that is the answer to the question. The houses are 300 miles apart. Polya's fourth step is to look back. Now that we have an answer, can we check our answer? Does our answer make sense? Can we solve this problem in a different way? Can we use our solution method to solve related problems? In checking our solution, we can ask the question, did we make any assumptions that might not be valid? And the answer is yes. In our diagram, Pollyanna's office was placed exactly halfway between their house and her mother's house. The problem does not say it's exactly there, and in reality, that does not seem likely. It seems more likely that their marriage counselor would be closer to their house rather than over 100 miles away. So, because the diagram is probably not accurate, we don't know that our answer of 300 miles is correct. Between now and the next class, try to solve this problem without assuming Pollyanna's office is exactly halfway between their house and her mother's house. We'll look at solutions which don't assume that in the second lecture.